All right, let's check these messages. Looks like we got Hugh Gerbro. Hugh says, you can't carve hard on a rocker board. Not so much. You definitely can carve hard on a rocker board. I know you see a lot of the comments out there, people saying that they're squirrely and the tail washes out. There's actually, if you're having a problem getting a good edge on a rocker board, you're probably trying to ride it like a cambered board. And it makes a big, big difference. Let's check this out. Okay, so let's check these things out between the camber and the rockered board, how you're gonna ride the rocker board to actually make it carve hard versus a cambered board. So right off the bat, we've got a cambered board here, this Arbor at Gucci, and then I also have a rocker board here, the Proto Synthesis from Never Summer. So biggest difference obviously between cambered and rockered boards is the cambered boards, the middle is lifted up, rockered boards, the outsides are lifted up. And obviously they both work really, really well. A lot of the companies make, boards in both versions, and they're more popular boards. They'll make a rockered board, they'll make a cambered board. Because again, they both work and they just ride a little different. But between the carving and how to carve hard and set a good edge on a rockered board, the biggest thing is that people try to take a rockered board and ride it like a traditional cambered board. So here's kind of the big things. With a cambered board, middle's lifted up, you get really good torsional flex. It's forcing your contact points down into the snow, so your board always wants to be on edge. And yeah, you're gonna be able to carve hard, really, really hard on that cambered board. And the guys that like to carve hard really, really do like the cambered boards for that, that fact as well. But when the board's sitting like this, you'll notice that obviously the middle of the board is not touching. So when you're standing on this board and you tip this thing up on edge, obviously if you tip it up, the middle of the board is still not touching. So what you have to do is your body weight obviously pushes down on the board, but you do have to push with your knees kind of inward a little bit to help set that edge a little bit more in between your feet, because you're not standing right in the middle of the board. So that's the big thing with the cambered boards, and when you ride them, that's how you set that edge. You're utilizing your entire edge. So where it comes into play with a rockered board, and why people get on a rockered board and when they ride it, they say it feels a little squirrely and the tail kicks out on them, it's because you're trying to ride a rockered board like you're riding a cambered board. So obviously with the rockered board, different, the middle is what's sitting and the outsides are lifting up. So you obviously stand on the board and that helps push it down just like the cambered board. And a lot of people will say, well, yeah, you're not standing in the middle of a cambered board, but you're not standing all the way out at your contact points on a rockered board. The big, big difference here is if we actually go from this rocker where the tips are lifted up and we lift it up just like the cambered board, now the middle is not touching. The outsides are touching. Why that's important is that means that somewhere between here and here, your entire edge is actually touching the snow with zero weight on the board. So you actually are getting that edge into the snow. The other nice thing about it too is if we actually take and we put all the way here, now all the rocker in this board is basically up at the nose of this thing. I can take my pinky and push this thing down, and that's nowhere near my body weight. So again, with the camber rockered boards, your tips are lifted up, and yeah, you're not standing out there, but just you standing on the board, you're putting weight and you're flexing the board a little bit. Your contact points are not being forced into the snow, so they give you that catch-free feel. But as soon as you tip this thing up, you're actually flexing the board enough to set that entire edge. Why the boards get squirrely is because if you try to ride this like a cambered board, what happens is you go to set your edge, and if you lean in a little bit and push like you are with a cambered board to push the middle of the board down, you think about it, when you snowboard, you pretty much ride with your weight on your front foot. And you steer with your back foot, and then you go into those turns and you're trying to push in, you still have your weight on your front foot a little bit. You're not leaning forward, but your weight is on that front foot. So if you try to push in and your weight's on your front foot, yeah, the front of that board is getting pushed into the snow, But if you lean in, you're actually flexing the back of the board and lifting it. So you're actually causing the tail to lift and causing that contact point to not be in the snow. And that's where the back of the board gets a little squirrely on you. So basically how you ride a rocker board when you're going edge to edge, if you're just cruising and sliding turns, it's basically the same thing. But when you're going to actually set your edge and really dig in, the trick is you actually do less and the board does more. Instead of getting it up on edge, flexing, boom, trying to push towards the inside, all you do is you take your toes, even out your weight, and you stick them both in the snow and you push straight down. And that helps put the pressure a little more evenly across the board, especially into the tail, where, you know, again, if you lean in, it's actually gonna cause the back of the board to flex up and the board to wash out on you. Likewise on your heels, you just lean back. I always say it's like turning a skateboard. When Lip Tech came out with, you know, the skate banana, you know, back in, what was it, 2007, 2008, you know, somewhere in that range. They called it the skate banana because one, banana is what they call their rocker. Skate, because it turns like a skateboard. You literally, on a skateboard, you don't lean and push it, you literally just toes, heels. Same thing, when you go to set your edge on your rocker board, if you just take your toes or your heels and you stick them into the snow and push straight down evenly, you utilize that edge better and you can carve super, super hard. Personally, I've never carved harder in my life than on a rocker board. Again, the cambered boards are still gonna be more aggressive and you can probably still get out there and really lay in some carves, you know, super, super hard on those cambered boards. But at the end of the day too, you still can carve hard on that rocker board. And if you do have a rocker board and you're noticing that the tail, you know, seems a little fishy, then that's exactly what you're doing. You're used to riding that cambered board and you're used to pushing on the middle and you're actually lifting up the tail and flexing the tail up while the nose is being stuck in the snow. And that's how the board's getting a little fishy on you. And the other thing too is depending on the board and depending on how the board's bent with the rocker can make a big difference too. If you have a flat board that has rocker in the nose and tail, that's going to be a little different than, you know, like with Lip Tech or with, you know, Never Summer. You know, they were the first ones to do the rocker with the camber in the nose and the tail. That camber puts the tips down a little closer to the snow. So when you go to tip it up on edge, it's gonna get on edge a little quicker because the tips are closer to the snow. But again, all those different shapes and, you know, when it comes down to it, if your nose and tail are already lifted up and you wanna get a good edge and really, really dig in, then that's where you just want to get straight on the toes, straight on the heels, push straight down, and you will notice a huge, huge difference. All right, Hugh, so hopefully that helps you out a little bit and, you know, just kind of shows you a little bit about, you know, how the rocker boards actually do work. And, you know, again, you do a little less and the board will do a little bit more. Yeah, you want to get out and you want to get after it all day long, you want that super aggressive ride, go for the cambered board. But if you do like the idea of the rocker board and just think that you can't carve hard on it, it's just not true. You definitely can get out and rail on these things super, super hard if you ride them right.